So now this term is really thrown around on the internet, especially in a time where we have a lot of TikTok psychiatrists. Ooh, it's the ghetto. Everyone with a small sentiment, anaweka background music anasema, on this episode of tackling daddy issues. This is what, and they give advice and they give their comments and their sentiments in such a convincing tone.
Have you seen the
such a
one?
convincing voice. You think it's actually gospel truth.
Have you seen the one where they say if you're craving carbs, your problem is you miss the love of your father. You miss being hugged by your father.
Foundation.
Like, how is it that me wanting bread has anything to do with me having daddy
because
issues?
your father did not hug you.
Oh my God, the internet is ghetto.
If you cannot feed your spiritual stomach, how can your physical stomach be full?
You're wild.
So you have to be very careful with all of this advice and all of these opinions that are made to look like facts on the internet. And then we're just going to go ahead and do what they always do. Because today we're talking about daddy issues and how they affect, people, especially girls. And number one, how do daddy issues affect people? At the top of that list, sometimes girls are really drawn to older men. You actually find that, you prefer to date people of a higher age bracket than you. Everyone else your age is, ooh, you're my friend, you're my brother, we are siblings. We cannot, you can't romanticize anyone who's an appropriate age. You go for people who are your father's and grandfather's stage. Not because, simply because you're craving such a relationship. You're craving validation from them. You're craving your father's love, and because you can't get that, you look for it in your partners and your romantic partners, which is very, very, a lot.
Yeah, but let's not assume that some people are just not attracted to silver foxes.
It's not every case.
It's not every case of someone who's attracted to like a silver fox that is equivalent to you having daddy issues. Some people just like the men older, because again, we get so much mature, so much earlier than guys. So sometimes you want someone to keep up with you. You want someone to keep up with for a change. Yeah. Another one is abandonment issues. Girl, child. Girl child, it's crazy out here. Every time you're with someone, you feel like they're going to leave you. Every time you're getting into a relationship, your first fear is like, oh my God, are they going to see that I'm not valuable? Are they going to eventually find out that, I am broken and such and such and such and such? And you go on this long trail of thought that ultimately leads to you sabotaging your relationship simply because you're afraid of them leaving before you leave. It's like a whole thing. And a lot of people who tend to have daddy issues, especially when your dad left you when you were really young, or they were there, but, they were a nice picture. You can look at them.
They're not functional.
Yes, they're very much present, but that's about it. They're alive, So some people who tend to have that will fear the not knowing of a relationship, or the level to which your relationship becomes unknown to you, because ultimately human beings are human beings. If they want to leave, they all leave. That's what you need to remind yourself. If they want to leave, they're gonna leave, and there's nothing you can do that will force them to stay with you. Yeah. So abandonment issues is another major symptom.
And another one, the last one, have using sex as a tool to seek validation.
You're punishing your father.
So you find people are very hypersexual because if we perform sex, if have such a connection, you're not going to leave me, you're going to stay with me. So you're always performing. It's very performative sex. You're not getting anything out of it. Your goal is actually just to serve this person, to make sure that you can provide sexual needs, because they will never leave you, okay? And they validate how desirable you are, it's how lonely you are. They cover for what was lonely, they are now. And the flip side, you actually find that people who the act of sex altogether, they actually do young age, grow old. I don't want to do this anymore. It's a complete turn off. You want other things other than that. So you find it's 50-50. You're either very hypersexual or you have no sexual inclination
Yeah, you have no desire for it altogether. But there are others actually that we did come up with, which include varied insecurities. Like there is something about you wanting your father's attention and like that can cause you to feel like a lot of self-doubt creeping up every so often. You really just need to, it's, I don't know, there's something that chips away at, you know, if you didn't see your father loving you and your fellow siblings, you don't really have the perfect image of that, you know. So in your mind, you've kind of concocted this weird fantasy man who is going to fit the mound that you wanted your father to become. And so it starts to creep up on you that, well, maybe you have a few insecurities here and there simply because you don't really get, it feels like you are undeserving of love. You know, it feels like, well, my father left, so why should you stay and stuff like that. So oftentimes you do end up having a lot of creeping, varied forms of pattern of unstable relationships, again, because of the fact that, you know, they weren't there. So you tend to, you're kind of hoping that someone sees you. You're hoping that someone recognizes and they give you something. There's that craving of that paternal love that unfortunately if you didn't get, you tend to want to find other people. So you have very awkward relationships, some too long, longer than they should have been, some too short, shorter than they should have been, simply because of the build up, you know.
Trailer relationships.
It's 3 minutes long and you're done.
Or you actually just leave them before they leave you.
Yeah, because you're fearing the rejection. You don't want to feel rejection. Others are overcompensating in relationships, yeah, because you're really working hard to make sure that this person never leaves. So you're overdoing it. Like you, no, I don't. I need some time. No, what can I do? What can I do? I need you. I need to just tell me what I can do and then I can deal with it. That oftentimes helps. It helps your mind kind of piece together the fact that you did everything that you could in that relationship, so much so that if they end up leaving, it's really not your fault. But like, to whose expense? At whose expense are you doing these things? Overexerting yourself and putting so much pressure and energy in a relationship that really shouldn't be put in. Let the other person work and squirm as well. And I think oftentimes we tend to underplay how difficult it is to be the person who's always left with the bag. Like, imagine being the person who's always dumped. You know, that's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pain. So I think oftentimes I just think it's important to seek some help, even if you don't necessarily go to a psychiatrist or a therapist or whatever, but seek internal help. Like, find a way to heal that version of you that feels so tortured. Train yourself to not overextend yourself in relationships or underextend yourself in relationships or seek validation too much from people. Like, you train yourself slowly, painfully, but slowly, and eventually you get to a point where you find love in yourself and you don't need to find love in others, you know.
And also just being a control freak.
Oh God.
You know, you have to be at the front seat of every event in your life. You have to control everything. So you have to control what happens in your life, what happens in the life of the people who are around you, your partners and everything, because anything unpredictable is chaotic, you know. And the thing with life is, of course, it's going to be unpredictable. We can't plan everything down to the minute, but the minute something deviates from what you had planned, that is chaos for you. That really unsettles you. That really just unbalances everything you've been working so hard towards, and you feel very crushed. But the thing is, you cannot control anything. So if you've been a control freak and you've been thinking, things have to go my way. If it doesn't go my way, please look into it.
Yeah, and
heal your child.
The other downside of it all, unfortunately, is where you avoid emotional intimacy, or when you get it, you find you either avoid it completely or you find it very difficult to express
it. Yeah.
Because unfortunately, again, it's stemming back from your father who did not give you the chance to grow or did not give you the chance to express yourself. Oftentimes when you have daddy issues, it's because you didn't get a chance to express yourself emotionally to your father, or they didn't express themselves either. So there was no love, there were no hugs. Sometimes it's even, you know, sometimes, oh God, I remember sometimes you think of these things and you're like, wow, that was so problematic. I remember one time we took my dad to the airport because he was leaving the country to go back to where he lives. He lives in the UK. So we were at the airport and this is after my mom, and it was the first time we'd ever taken my dad to the airport without my mom, right? And so when we got there, he's like, all right, telling us goodbye. Do you know what happened? As he was walking in, he shook our hands. Literally, he shook our hands and said, all right, goodbye. And honestly, to this day, he shook my hand, shook my brother's hand, but hugged my friend. And I will never, like, do you know, like, it takes so much energy for someone to take away something so important to you. Like, we've just lost our mom. We just want you to show that love.
Hug me.
You know, like, why are you making it so weird? And honestly, to this day, I don't think I can hug my dad without feeling awkward. And it always happens in public where there's people looking. So it makes it even worse because it's like he doesn't want to feel like there's something he hasn't done, so he's going to hug us in front of other people. It's so messed up, you know? So it's there's a level of aloofness that happens after that. Like, you always just like kind of act brand new, and you will avoid interacting too much with people because you're trying to avoid that. There's that missing link that you... Let me tell you, daddy issues are problematic, but they explain so much.
Yeah.
They explain so much.
About
because you
who we
either
turn out to be.
overcompensate or you completely undercompensate. Yeah, you completely refuse to hug people yourself, or you hug people too much. Like you know, these things are weird. Like
Adulting is truly the
scam, right? It's a scam.
We hope that you have, picked a few. And if there's anything we did not mention, please go look it up, okay? Sometimes we're not able to cater to all of your needs. So please go and do the extra homework.